Alright, here we go. Glenman row here one more time. We're going to work on a three-piece move that's going to get you pretty limber and prepared for the back handspring. But we got to be flexible. We got to have motor memory, and we got to get used to being down here. So we're going to do some warm-up exercises. It's a three-piece lick. Okay? Squirrel, right? Our lovely friends, the squirrels. If you have any, here's some trees. Lucky you, right? You're blessed. Alright, so we're going to go from here. All your postures are usually going to be here. So if you can't do this, you already know what to do. You got to get used to getting down here. Alright. I'm fresh out the chute right now, so I have to kind of get limbered up here. So we're going to go from the posture. Right? Your primary, it's a primal starting point, or your primary. Okay? Alright. Yeah, I'm stiff, I can feel it. Alright, they call this the swan, or the rising swan. Some people call this the cobra. Right? The snake, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a swan. Well, swans are sort of reptiles, right? They're kind of snaky with feathers. So, I mean, they're not totally wrong. So you want to go into the, I'll just call this the swan. That's what I call it. So go to the swan. Try to get that back. See how my back is? Just kind of go into it. Right? Go back into the squirrel. And then what we're going to do when we get to this point, this is your medial. This is the medium point. Because we got to go backwards. Make sense? We got to go backwards, kids. So, whatever hand you're dominant on, like if you're right-handed, right? But what is your weak side? My weak side is on this side. So I have to use, we're trying to create symmetry. Because your weak side is going to be your failure. It's going to be your downfall. So we have to create symmetry on both sides of the body. So, right? So we need to go and mimic. We're mimicking the movement of what we got to do. Okay? So we go back into, right? We're going to get into this. Swan. Let's try to start getting limbered up here. Loosen up a little bit, right? We're trying to just kind of stretch. Play around with it. Squirrel. And we want to go backwards. So, you can go like this to get started if you're not good at this next part. Right? So you go from the swan to the squirrel, and then we're going to stretch. Right? You're going to have to throw your hands back. So you got to mimic. That is the idea, okay? So when you go backwards, you're going to try to catch your hands. And then this, like I said, this is your go-between right here. This is your medial point. The squirrel, right? Frog, squirrel. Like I said, that's squirrel. It looks like a squirrel to me. So you go to the swan. Right? The squirrel. Then we're going to stretch, called the back bridge. You're going to stay here for like 15 to 30 seconds. See that? Okay. You get to that point, we're going to add one more. Once you start doing that a few times, I usually do that somewhere between 6 to 10 times. Just to start getting limbered up, right? So you're going to do swan to squirrel, stretching into the back bridge position. Hold that for several seconds. Then you're going to go back into it, and then you're going to go back into your position. All right. And then when you start moving your head around, you're probably going to hear some popping and some air moving around and synovial fluid in the joints and stuff. Some of you probably won't be able to do that right off the bat, but just keep trying it. Eventually, your body will acclimate to it. Okay, so that's a three-piece: swan to squirrel, stretching in the back bridge position for several seconds. Do that about, I don't know, do that several times, right? See the example here? It's all starting with S's. It's stretching, okay? For best results, you just want to do about six, 7 times. That's what it takes me. Okay, and then we're going to do, I got to do this a couple more times. Swan. Go to the swan. The rising swan, I believe that's what it's called. You're just trying to move around, kind of get in there. You're not really trying to force it. Okay, squirrel. And you want to go into the back bridge stretch. All right, once you get that, you're going to go back into the squirrel. And here's what I do. I do 2 more. Remember, we got to get used to being on our hands, and we got to get used to throwing this left. Because remember, if you're right side dominant, or you only use one side of your body more than the other, one side of you is not symmetrically, probably aligned correctly. So you got to get everything on an even playing ground. Everybody has to be fair. I was like, okay, I'm weak on this side. I got to get used to throwing this way. This is more muscular. This is more finesse because it's the weaker side. Okay, then I go into the handstand. See that? Going into the handstand. So that's the main parts. That is the main parts. But if you're not used to throwing, right, you're going to get used to handstands and trying to feel that side that you're kind of weak on, right? Motor memory. That's all we're trying to do. Get used to being on there, move around, see why it doesn't work, train it a little bit. Okay? We know I can do a handstand. We know I can bend backwards. Now, why can't you do a back handspring, Glenn? I can. I just have problems with this hand right here. Now we're going to work on the reason why my lefty doesn't want to go down here. Okay. So we're going to go into the swan, the squirrel, and then we're going to throw. We're going to practice throwing really slow. Right? We want to do the movement, the mobility part first. Okay? So here we go. Swan. This is basically the flow of it. And after you get used to it, you can speed it up. Okay? Swan to squirrel. Now watch this. Okay? You got to go left. So you got to get used to that hand placement. So you're going to want to try to go. It's like, well, I know I have to go backwards, and I know I can go this way. How come I can't throw this way? You got to get used to it. So watch. Swan, squirrel. Right, now we're going to have to stretch to the left. Remember, whatever side you might be having problems with is the side you got to go to. And this is, at first, this is going to be kind of difficult because you have something known as impingements, or you haven't done this before, so you have to actually warm it up, get used to the movement. It'll come along if you just keep practicing, I promise. Just keep trying, it'll come along. And always try to make sure the temperature outside is warm. It helps, it's a lot easier. Okay? Swan. Squirrel. You're going to throw to the left. You're going to go like this. Put your hand placement. You're going to stretch off to the left. The grass is wet. You might have a little bit of a problem, but don't worry about that. Just try. You see that? So I went off to the left. I stretched to the left. And then I pivoted back around. Okay, like you're gonna throw that way, that's the place you're gonna land. So you go from the squirrel, right? You go to the swan. The grass is wet, so I might be slipping a little bit. But that's okay, it's gonna happen, you're gonna get used to it. Swan, squirrel, then you're gonna stretch off to the left. See, the first one I did was difficult because, right? I haven't done it in a while. I haven't done this since yesterday. So you got to do a couple of them to get back into it. And that's not my forte, right? So that's my difficult side. But on most people, left is easy for them to do because it's finessing. I'm stiff on the right, but I'm more weaker on the left for trying to catch myself. If that makes any sense. I'm not flexible on this side because this is my shield side. I'm flexible on this side, but I'm weaker up top. So you have to figure out how to, the muscle problem. You're like, okay, the symmetry is no bueno. I gotta fix the symmetry. So let's try again. You're gonna do this a few times. And then, right, we're gonna work on the flipping. But first we gotta work on the actual form and try to get the flow down. That's all we're doing. We're gonna get flexible, work on the form and the flow. And then we're gonna work on the flipping afterwards. So you go to the swan, go to the squirrel, then you're gonna stretch off to the left. Remember, this is the way we gotta go. And I didn't put my hand placement. Watch your hand placement, like this. See that? A circular motion. That's called a pivot. You're going to go into a bridge on your left hand. This is going to help you with your monkey flip too. The monkey flip, your back handspring, probably your just going backwards in general, and a lot of other problems you're going to have because you don't have, you haven't stretched your body out. It's known as subluxations and circulation problems. All right, let's try it again. And as you get more warmed up on that side, do a couple on this side. So you can have symmetry, right? So everything's like, okay, I'm trying to get this equality of balance on both sides. Like, okay, now I'm balanced. So you go from, you're gonna go into the swan, to the squirrel. You're gonna put that left hand off to the side. You're gonna stretch off to the left. And you're gonna do a circular pivot or a pivot. And you're going to try to be expedient about it the better you get. The reason why I'm doing this all really tight and compact and low, because that's where the magic's at. We want to be fully extended, right, to the most that we can and get warmed up. That way, because the flipping part's actually easy. But you want to be stretched a little bit further past what you would probably need. Does that make sense? We're actually trying to go into a full form back stretch. But the flipping and the actual back handspring, you're not going to be into a full, right? A full back stretch. A lot of times there'll be gravity. You can throw your legs. Okay. So you go into the swan, right? Like I said, you're going to have to do this several times. Try to get the back. See how I got my back to the sun? Get it all nice and warm. Like, oh yeah. This will help you out with all kinds of other health problems too. Especially if you suffer from depression and lack of energy. Alright. Swan the squirrel. Then you're going to stretch off to the left. It just gets easier, right? And just pace yourself and watch your breathing, right? And just don't get frustrated if you can't do it at first. Just try. Keep trying. Give yourself, about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Break it into about 30-minute sections twice a day. If you can't do that, break it into 20. It's like, okay, I have an AM session, I do this for 20 minutes. I come back before I go to sleep. I do it for 20 minutes. Do that for a couple weeks. Or at least do the back bridge like this. Or try it. Back stretch, right to front. See that? I do those a lot. Just that stretching motion right there. That's where your bread and butter is at for all these flips and all these hand walks and stuff. So, but because I have a problem throwing off to the left, especially from a low situation, which is where I'm usually at on the ground, because I'm small and I usually give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. I'm working on that, not being so naive. All right. I want to be sentient, but I don't want to be gullible. All right, so swan, squirrel, you're going to stretch off to the left. That's all we're doing. We're just training, creating, we're stretching muscle memory, and we're trying to see if I can actually pull this off. Right? Like, okay, getting warmed up, and even if you can't do it right away, don't worry about all that. Just keep trying. You'll get it eventually, I promise. Consistency. Just keep pushing a little every time you do it. I couldn't even do a back bridge when I started. I was like, oh God, I couldn't even pick myself up. It was horrible. I was so frustrated. I was like, oh, I got this now. And I had some health problems that I didn't know about. I was like, oh shit. That whole side of my body was all messed up. I was like, oh, I better fix that. So these exercises have been helping me. Okay. Squirrel, right? So go from the swan. To the squirrel. Hand placement. Just get confident with it. Quality. We want quality. We want actually the full stretch, nice form, quality. Don't worry about how many. Just if you can do them confidently for several times, you're good to go. Just get warmed up, get confident with it. If you get tired, wait a while. But my weak portion on doing my back handsprings is on the left. So I got to train that side. And ever since I've been stretching and training that side, I noticed that this part of my brain works a lot better. And I feel better and I'm not all stressed out. And I used to have chest pains right here. And I don't have that problem anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, so I was having congestion or an impingement somewhere in here. So that took care of it. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Let's do it again. Right? Give yourself a few minutes, take some breaths. Go back into it. That's all we're doing. That way when you have to actually do this, you'll be there. It'll be there. You'll be confident. Like, I know I can't do it, but I know what it's like to go over backwards, and now I can put my hand out there. I might not be like an expert ninja or gymnast or some shit, but I know if I have to go back there, I know if I have to bend over, I'm not going to get hurt too bad. See, you won't get hurt too if you ever get in a situation, get in an accident, you fall down, you don't hurt anymore. It's like, oh, okay. You'll be resilient. Okay, swan, squirrel, catch it. Notice my hand spins. You're going to have to get used to this, doing this a little bit pivot on the wrist. That's what I'm saying. You might want to take your time at first and just get used to it. Some people have weak wrists. Okay, now let's try the handstand. Right? Back to the squirrel, right? We call this the prayer posture as well. Into the plie. This is where you're going to go like this when you go to do the back handspring. But this is the lowest point. You probably won't even go down this low. I just go way lower than I'm supposed to, so I can get that full stretch. See, I can't do it now. Watch. You want to get up kind of in the front. See? All right. Back. We're just mimicking the actual movement. Now, once we get confident with all this, we can speed it up. Catch where I'm going with this? Once you get confident with the form, right, and the physical aspects of it, like, okay, I'm warmed up. I can actually do this. I'm flexible, right? I got the form down. Now we need to work on the function and the speed, right? Function and fast. Put it together. And get used to catching yourself a little bit too, in case you're like, well, okay, well, I'm off this way, I'm off this way. And then stand back up. Right? That's pretty much it. I mean, that's the rudiments of actually getting to the monkey flip. A lot of your other exercises, like I said, this isn't just for doing flips, and this is basically for health too. You have good circulation, flexibility. You'll have a better mood. You'll be like, oh, I'm not depressed. I don't feel all stressed out, angry. That's one of the number one things I noticed was I felt a lot happier. I was like, oh, okay, I don't feel like I have weight on my chest or I have this heart problem right there. And plus, getting sun exposure, I come out here and get a lot of sun now. I'm like, okay, right here too, this is it. If you have joint problems, this is what's wrong with it. You need sun exposure and you need to move it. You need to move them hips. And this is what helps me. This has helped me out a lot. I just never did these. I was like, I didn't know I could do these. I was like, okay. So I go to the swan. Now we're going to speed it up. Go to the swan. Go to the squirrel. Roll off to the left. Come back, right? Now we can go into the handstand. Right? And you're going to go into the back bridge. See where I'm going this? Go back and forth. Just go back and forth a few times. That's all you're doing. I'll stay out here for about 20-30 minutes. Then I'll go do something else for a while. Then I'll come back. And then when I feel rested up and I'm really fired up, I'll come out here and I'll do a back handspring. Sometimes I can't do them because I did sprints that day, or I'm tired from a previous physical activity, or I just don't feel like it. I'm like, man, I just ain't got it today. So that's when you figure it out. Do I need more sun? Do I need more sleep? Do I need to breathe more? Do I need to warm up before I do it, or am I overdoing it? Is my diet not on point? Am I stressed out? Not in it, I'm not in it today, right? And so you got to think about those things. You get all the basics down, you'll be all right. And I'll put a list up on the next video or two of some checklists you can go by to help you get there, right? So we go from, you're not physically capable, so because your diet's not on point, you got bad habits, right? You're sedentary, you don't sleep right, you don't have no sun exposure, right? You eat junk food, you do drugs and drink and smoke. You might be missing a body part, that sucks. I know what it's like to be hurt and injured. I got bullet holes, stab wounds, missing teeth. I'm blind almost in one eye. That's okay, we can still do this. All right, so we're gonna go back. Remember, we're still in the primal posture. This is where it's at, the squat. You stay in your squirrel squat. This is where it's at. See? You don't have to do a lot of them, but you gotta do these. It's very important that you can do these. This is just basic primal movements. If you can't do this, you're gonna have health problems. Seriously, I neglected doing this when I was younger. I was like, man, I should have fucking been doing this shit. I wasn't allowed. Right? I was too busy working, or I wasn't allowed to. All right. Swan. Swirl squat. Right? Throw that hand. Right? That side lateral stretch. That pivot. You can also call those tricep push downs or lat raises too. So you notice I don't have a gym. This is pretty much how I do it. You notice there's no weights involved. Nothing. It's all basic physical body movement. Okay, you see what I did, right? Swan, squirrel squat. Throw that hand into a back bridge stretch. Stay there for a few seconds. Come back around. And you're going to feel it in your hips back here, but remember your hips are in a socket. So they move like this. They move around. If you don't go the other direction, then that part of the body will never develop. I just know something I noticed. I was like, oh, you don't do any activity, it doesn't develop correctly. You don't get to play. All right? Now let's go into the handstand. Right? Even if you can't do it very long, just get up there. Just try it. And if you feel like you're going to fall, go like this. If you want to tuck your head, you're going to roll. I'll show you. Because a lot of people, they fall down, they don't do this. If you have problems getting into the handstand, you're going to go like this. See where I'm going? Just try it. You know, little baby steps at a time. Like, okay, I know I got to do this. I know I got to stand up. Just get used to it. That's how I did it. I started just like this. Okay. All right, now I can do the handstand. And now you can bail out. And then when you get good at that, you can do the handstand push-up. Right? You can get into a handstand and actually do a push-up and push down. I did a bunch yesterday, so I'm kind of tired. See that? Ugh. Ugh. All right, well, I hope that helps y'all out. And maybe this video will post better than the one I did last time. So with that, I'm going to say, okay, that should be enough to get you started on the back bridge, the monkey flip, and some of the other problems you might have, right, physically and spiritually. Remember, because your mind, right, and your body are connected to a soul, and inside that soul is a spirit. So if you don't feel good, you're not happy. Right? We got to check under the hood and see why. So, anyhow, I'm Dr. Glenn Monroe, VRCM Skywarn, Central Missouri, Exmo, right? Roman Gnome. I'll talk to y'all later. Okay.